this justifiable, or is it a case of state overreach? In the first pro-Palestine protest after October the 7th, one Palestinian student was asked for their views on what Hamas did. Her response, I think, is absolutely shocking and deeply troubling.
A lot of Gazans right now are living in fear, but also they are full with pride. This is the first time that something like this happens in modern day history. For 16 years, Gaza has been under blockade, and for the first time, they are actively resisting. They are not on the defense, and this is truly a once-in-a-lifetime experience. And we are both in fear, but also in fear of how Israel will retaliate and how we've seen it retaliate overnight, and the missiles that it's launched and the attacks. But also, we are full of pride. We are really, really full of joy.
Full of pride, full of joy at what Hamas did on October the 7th. Now, there is no world, I think, in which any right-thinking person would describe themselves as proud of the raping and the butchery that Hamas produced that day. How proud are you of the commission of war crimes or of terrorism? Answer from this woman at least seems to be very. That's disgusting. Does it warrant her losing her student visa and being essentially booted out of the country? This is what Dana Abuqamar says happened to her after her comments went to air. She has since said that those comments that we played to you were taken out of context, but that might just be some kind of desperate revisionism. Reality is, she said what she said. The Home Office aren't commenting directly. They say they don't comment on individual cases. But she says her student visa has been revoked on not national security grounds, but it's being suggested by Whitehall sources on grounds that she is not conducive to the public good. That means instances where people have engaged in unacceptable or extremist behaviour, such as activity which fosters hate, or where a person is associated or has been associated with people involved in terrorism. I wonder what you make of that. The law says that the expression of support for a prescribed terrorist group, in this case Hamas, is a criminal offence. But this woman hasn't, not that I'm aware of anyway from the pieces I've read about this woman has not been convicted of a criminal offence, nor has been arrested for a criminal offence. Instead, her visa has been revoked, she says, on rather opaque grounds. And as I made clear, the Home Office are saying, we are not commenting on individual cases. A Whitehall source is quoted as saying, this is because she is not conducive to the public good. Had the Home Office said, we think you're a danger to the public and here's why, there are offences she can be arrested for. But in the absence of being investigated, the Home Office has essentially booted her out. Do you find that difficult? This is not a woman who's been arrested for a crime or convicted of a crime. She has said something that is truly, I think, abhorrent, wrong-headed, crazy, maddening, outrageous, and probably not particularly conducive to some people's good. But if she hasn't committed a crime, should she have her visa revoked? Should she be booted out of the country? So, in asking that question, please let it be made absolutely clear, I am not sticking up for what she said or her thoughts around what she said. I think that they are appalling. Am I sticking up for the right to know why someone has been ejected from the country and possibly their right to challenge that? Might be. Because we can't have the state booting people out who are here lawfully and who are acting apparently lawfully, who haven't yet committed a crime, but with whom we profoundly and quite angrily disagree. 03456060973. My gut response is good. Out. Then you think, well, what precedent is this setting? The state decides it doesn't like you for what you say, and if you're on a particular type of visa, lawfully in this country, sorry, but the state is going to decide not to renew that visa because we don't like what it is you've said. There will be free speech absolutists listening who completely abhor what she has said, but maybe you're worried about the way in which it's been handled. Holly's in Wimbledon to kick us off. Holly.
Hi, Tom. I think your original gut feeling is certainly correct. It's very obvious to me that this person should not be in this country. The granting of a visa for any purpose is a privilege. It's certainly not a right. And I think you mentioned in your summary that it's certainly the decision is not conducive to all people. But I would say that it is conducive to the safety of everyone in this country. We certainly can't have someone on any sort of status in this country who holds the views that are in line with those which have exercised one of the most brutal and appalling massacres we have seen in modern times of individuals in another country, of course, but in a manner which we are familiar with in this country too: rape, murders, murder of children in front of their parents, murder of parents in front of their children, abductions. We simply just can't have that on our soil, and anyone who is on this soil praising.
Okay, so Holly, to take your reasoning, which again, I would gut feel agree with. I absolutely hate and have said repeatedly for the last 6, 7, 8 months, however long this awful thing has been going on for, against people who come on the air and espouse that kind of view. It's appalling. But do we kick all of them out of the country?
Yes. Yes,
we kick everyone with that view that
we
this
kick
was...
everyone out of this country who is here on a non-permanent basis, for example, who espouse views which are in line with the terrorist activities committed by a terrorist organisation in at least everyone's recent memory. I don't understand why that is an objection, why anyone could have possibly object to that.
Well, partly because it's the government who says what terrorists are. The government makes it a group, a prescribed terrorist organisation. So the definition of terrorism and who are terrorists shifts around.
It may well do, but in the context of an organisation such as Hamas, are we really questioning whether they are a terrorist organisation?
I'm not, Holly.
Right.
But tell that to the BBC.
But they maintain that they don't use the term terrorism in a lot of other situations as well in order to maintain neutrality, which I also disagree with.
Yes, me too.
However, in this particular context, it cannot be up for debate that the activities of Hamas are not terrorist activities.
I agree.
We cannot have an individual in this country who has aligned their views with the support of a terrorist organisation.
Well, interestingly, if she were to have been, or if anyone, let's depersonalise it, if anyone is to express support for a prescribed terrorist organisation, that is a crime and they should be arrested. And I think then, absolutely, if they're on a impermanent visa or a visa that requires renewal, get them out. But she hasn't been. So why hasn't this person been arrested, would be my first question.
That's a very, very good question, and that's obviously a matter for the police to answer. I don't know what sort of collaboration there is between the Home Office and the police in that respect, but certainly I would argue that this is a police matter.
All right, Holly, thank you.
People who have said far more egregious things have not been, deported or asked to leave the country if they're a student. And actually, there is some inconsistency here, which is what your caller makes, which is if we do believe in this, inalienable human rights of free speech, then there is this discrepancy.
Well, no, it's not. Sorry, just go back. The freedom of speech thing comes with consequences. You can't just say what you want and expect there to be nothing to happen. That doesn't work. The inalienable right is the right that people who are born here have to be in this country, which is very different from people who come here on a visa.
Yes, but this Palestinian student could argue, well, if there are, for example, the Green Party, a councillor who recently got elected, are saying also equally egregious things, and he's an elected official, then lots of people could be quite surprised at this discrepancy, because she's actually said something relatively in the, if we look at the whole spectrum of harm done, she might even be on the slightly weaker,
I don't know about that. I don't know. Rejoicing in a terrorist attack is one of the things that you would say is a kind of run-of-the-mill opinion.
But they're the same. But if if I were to give you the councillor who's basically also rejoiced in it.
Well, the councillor said he is elected for the people of Gaza or something like that, didn't he?
No, but on October the 7th, he said, this was an act of fighting white supremacy on October the 7th. So that is presumably also saying that it was an okay thing. So if we were to compare that, then actually we're not saying, he should be deported, even though some people might say so.
I guess what we're circling around... both of us are circling around, is the idea of who gets to decide what is so offensive and so outrageous that means that person needs to be booted out. And at the moment, it's the state. And is there an eyebrow to be raised at that idea that it's the state that, almost arbitrarily it would seem, says what can and cannot go as opinion in this country?
Yes, so I was one thing I would only hit, that's the final point. So I guess it's like a Singapore issue, really, which is we, as a country, find it very difficult to reconcile when are we Singapore, when does the state basically defend its own interest and basically make decisions outside of the usual court process, or are we this kind of country that basically allows people to basically exert its freedom of speech and its human rights in the picture.
So I guess the question is, well, when does this business of being not conducive to the public good start? If we are 99% of us in agreement that what she said is absolutely appalling, and I hope that would be the case, then fine. But do we have an understanding of when it is the Home Office might say, well, that really isn't conducive to the public good? Not really. That's sort of subjective opinion, isn't it? That gets quite difficult, I think.